Chinese President Xi Jinping, in a phone call with his US counterpart Donald Trump, pressed the issue of Taiwan.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry said the call touched on other issues like Ukraine, but Taiwan featured prominently, with China embroiled in a weeks-long diplomatic row with U.S. ally Japan over the self-governing island.
China claims Taiwan as part of its territory, and according to the ministry, Xi Jinping told Trump that Taiwan's return was an integral part of the post-war, that is the post-World War international order, as China sees it, forged in the joint US-China fight against fascism and militarism.
The tensions between Tokyo and Beijing was triggered by new Japanese PM Sanae Takaichi suggesting this month that Tokyo could intervene militarily in any attack on Taiwan.
While the US does not officially recognize Taiwan's claim to statehood, Washington remains the island's most important partner and arms supplier.
According to China's Foreign Ministry, Trump told Xi during the call that the U.S. understands how important the Taiwan question is to China. However, the issue of Taiwan found no mention in his Truth Social post on his discussions with Xi. It just praised extremely strong U.S.-China relations.
The U.S. president's statement also confirmed that he will visit China in April and that Xi Jinping will come to Washington later in 2026.
And to discuss more, we're now being joined live by Colin Strong-Yu-Keat. He is a foreign affairs and security strategist at the University of Malaya. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Now, Xi mention of China, absolutely, and its return to China. Now, Taiwan. He's mentioned Taiwan and its return to China. What do you feel has provoked the statement? When we look at Trump's statement on social media, on Truth Social, he does not really mention Taiwan. So, what was China's, point there to mention Taiwan there?
Well, it is basically a warning to Washington, to Trump, that Taiwan remains Beijing's ultimate red line, and of course, Beijing is increasingly wary of the increased strategic maneuvering by Trump in terms of also the encirclement of China. So of course, this resurgence of Japan's military advancement, and of course also the new strategy by Trump to consolidate the containment strategy against China in terms of Southeast Asia, in terms of Australia, in terms of this enhancement of ties with Japan, and of course Takaichi's own bold new model of foreign policy, of hardline policy in defending Japan's security interests and survival, and seeing how Taiwan's security and survival are very much interlinked with Japan's own security and survival interests. So this is basically a warning that Taiwan remains still China's ultimate red line, and of course as a message that Taiwan still remains the ultimate prize for China, and that any attempts to use Taiwan as a pretext will be seen as a violation of the One China principle, and of course as a violation of the internal affairs of China. So we've seen how Japan's central role in this Taiwan equation has been laid bare by the increasing tit for tat measures, and we have also seen how increasingly worried Beijing is in terms of Japan's own military revival and advancement, especially under Takaichi's administration.
Understood. Collins, let me just put it in a little more context for our viewers. Now, the Trump-Xi call, which has now concluded, of course, and the statements came out from both sides, differing in nature, though. It was not flagged by either country. There was no mention from US or China that they are going to be having a call. And this call is coming weeks after they met in South Korea, where they agreed on a trade framework, which has also not really been finalized. What do you feel caused this call, or the fact that it has been made public, those statements, especially that comment from Taiwan, on Taiwan, pardon me?
Well, we have seen this is also a multi-pronged factor in terms of course, the Taiwan issue, as well as, the equation of Ukraine in this aspect. We have seen how recent developments with regards to the peace plan for Ukraine and Russia. So this is also meant as a symbolic message to exert more pressure on China to also ultimately pressure Putin and Moscow to have this kind of agreement on the peace deal in Ukraine. But ultimately, it is also as a result of the increased moves by Japan under Takaichi in using this Taiwan pretext as a factor. So increasingly also being used as a message to Trump that you do not have to go deeper in terms of this containment strategy, and also aligning more with Japan in terms of how Takaichi has deviated away from the conventional approach of her predecessors. So I think this is also mainly as the timing and the strategic move by both sides to reach out via phone call, is strategic, and also as a message to Tokyo that the moves now have also maybe not being seen as a good move by Washington in terms of how Japan's move has been seen to being accused by Beijing to destabilize the whole East Asian region.
And that being said, how would you analyze U.S.'s move now, considering the fact that Trump has not really mentioned Taiwan? Where does this leave U.S. relations with Japan and the Asia-Pacific as a whole? We know that Trump did go to, he did meet Chinese president, also met Prime Minister Takeichi there. So how do you look at this going forward?
Well, we can see that, of course, Taiwan is growing in confidence in terms of Takaichi's administration's assurance, and also the move by Takaichi to have this bold strategic move early on to set the first phase of in terms of deviating away from this strategic ambiguity maneuver, and how this has been useful also to send a message to Washington that they need to stand deeper with Japan in terms of defending not only Taiwan's interests, but also Japan's own interests, and that Japan now is also sending a two-pronged message both to Beijing and Washington that it is increasingly upon itself in terms of how it will manage its own survival and security interests, and we can see that Japan's central role in the Taiwan inclusion has been prominent. Counter-strike capabilities, we have these Tomahawk missiles from the US now, and of course the hypersonic plans and F-35 fleets. So these are all central to the deterrent efforts against any potential China's invasion of Taiwan. So, and in all war game situation, if Japan is left out of this, conflict, then of course the percentage of China winning this invasion of Taiwan has been higher. So Beijing knows this, Washington knows this, and of course we have seen how this move by Takaichi has been strategic in exerting more pressure on both Trump and Beijing to take Japan and Taiwan more seriously in terms of deterring any Chinese move on Taiwan.
Understood. Collins, thanks so much for joining us here on the broadcast, as Beijing has reiterated in this reply, as you mentioned, that Taiwan remains Beijing's ultimate red line. Some symbolism from US in its response, and of course a two-pronged response from Tokyo as well. But the region, that entire region, Indo-Pacific, it remains volatile. We'll wait to watch what happens next. That was Collins joining us from
Thank you.